Okay, everyone, I obtained a copy of Luigi Mangione's motion to dismiss the state murder charges against him. Now, his defense attorneys filed the motion to dismiss immediately after he pled guilty to stalking, 2 counts of interstate stalking in the federal case. Now, the motion to dismiss seeks dismissal of the state charges for second-degree murder and weapons possession, and is based on 2 main grounds: double jeopardy and due process. Now, it had been reported that the motion to dismiss was just based on double jeopardy, and certainly the double jeopardy arguments are stronger than the due process arguments, but neither is a winning argument in my view. Now, the state murder trial had been set to begin on September 8th with jury selection, but that's been pushed back because of the motion to dismiss. New York State prosecutors now have until October 10th to file an opposition to the motion to dismiss. On the federal side, Mangione is set to be sentenced on December 18th. He pled guilty without a plea deal in place, so prosecutors are free to recommend the maximum sentence, and the feds have said they intend to seek life in prison. Now, the federal guidelines say 24 to 30 months, but in the federal system, the guidelines are advisory, not mandatory. Now, federal courts do need to calculate the guidelines as part of sentencing and explain upward and downward departures with reference to the criminal statute. So it's not all random and standardless, despite the fact that the guidelines are advisory in the federal system. But let's go to the motion to dismiss. The due process argument is based on a justice argument. Mangione's defense lawyers say that the federal government and the state of New York colluded to deprive Mangione of the benefit of an affirmative defense available on the state murder charge, which would have reduced the charge to manslaughter. Mangione's defense said that the 2 sovereigns, federal and state, did that by conspiring to put the state trial on first, then the federal trial. Now, apparently statements were made by prosecutors in court and on the record to that effect when they were arguing about which trial would take place first. Now, quoting from the motion to dismiss, the 2 sovereigns acted in concert with each other and that they specifically did so to best ensure that each got their chance to prosecute and convict Mr. Mangione. Another quote, by defending the state case and availing himself of the affirmative defense New York law provided him, he would necessarily implicate himself in the federal case. This ostensibly was the district attorney's office's and the federal government's plan all along. Well, maybe. The government is permitted to be strategic in prosecuting cases. A very famous case from the Supreme Court of the United States tells us that. Bordenkircher v. Hayes, which says that prosecutors may threaten to indict on a greater charge if a defendant refuses to plead guilty on a lesser charge. Now, in the Bordenkircher case, the greater charge was an habitual offender statute, which would make the defendant eligible for a life sentence since he had 2 prior felony convictions. Now, he rejected the offer, which was for a 5-year sentence, because potentially he could have been sentenced to just 2 years or been acquitted at trial. He wasn't. He was convicted at trial and sentenced to life in prison on the habitual offender charge. The Supreme Court eventually got the case and said it was not prosecutorial vindictiveness because plea bargaining is part of the criminal justice system. The defendant had a genuine choice whether to accept the plea offer or not, and the habitual offender charge was fully justified by the evidence. So it was not vindictive prosecution, according to the Supreme Court. Now, cases like that are instructive because they give us a sense of what the criminal justice system is. Now, some folks think it's vindictive, but a lot of it is just administrative efficiency, okay? Taxpayers are footing the bill for these prosecutions. I would say if it's a case of actual innocence in which the defendant actually did not commit the crime, a justice argument might be made, but Mangione is on surveillance footage putting a bullet in the brain of Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare. Execution style. His case is not an actual innocence case. So the question posed by the motion to dismiss is this: does collusion between the state and federal governments as alleged in the state and federal prosecutions of Mangione constitute a due process violation? I would say no, and the dueling sovereigns are alleged to have colluded to deprive him of the protections of New York State's broader double jeopardy statute. Does Mangione qualify for protection under New York's double jeopardy statute? I would say no. I posted a video about that last week. I'll link to it here. So, the dueling sovereigns are alleged to have colluded to deprive him of protection that he isn't entitled to. Now, Mangione's defense team puts in a strong effort with the motion to dismiss, but I'm not convinced. As I mentioned, New York State's opposition brief is due by October 10th, so keep it right here. I'll be following this case. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe.